The evening of March 3rd, 2017 was like any other in the bustling neighborhood of ABEKA LAPAZ in Accra. As the sun set, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, the streets thrummed with activity. Vendors shouted to passerbys, children played near the roadside, and commuters hurried home after a long day's work. At the corner of one particularly busy intersection stood the Evergreen gas station. Its neon sign flickered occasionally, casting a pale green light over the rows of gas cylinders and filling stations. The air was thick with the scent of petrol, mingling with the aroma of grilled meat from a nearby food store. It was a routine evening, but one that would soon be etched into the memories of everyone present. Kwame, the gas station's manager, was going through the day's sales report in his small office. His thoughts were on the upcoming weekend and a planned fishing trip with his son. His assistant, Amma, was outside helping a customer refill a gas cylinder. The station was busy, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. It was at that moment a small but deadly spark ignited in one of the underground storage tanks. The exact cause would be debated for months, with theories ranging from a faulty valve to an unnoticed gas leak. But at that instant, the cause was irrelevant. The result was a catastrophic chain reaction. A deafening explosion tore through the air, a thunderclap of destruction that sent shock waves across the neighborhood. Flames erupted, turning night into day. A massive fireball ascended into the sky. The force of the blast shattered windows in a radius of several hundred meters, sending shards of glass and debris flying like shrapnel. Kwame was thrown from his chair, his office windows bursting inward. He hit the floor hard. The air knocked out his lungs. His ears rang. The world around him, a cacophony of screams, alarms, and the roar of the fire. Disoriented and in pain, he struggled to his feet, instinctively knowing he had to get out, had to help. Outside the scene was pure chaos. Amma had been near the epicenter, was on the ground, her clothes singed and her face contorted in pain. Around her, people ran in every direction, some trying to flee the inferno, others rushing towards it to help the injured. The fire spread quickly, engulfing nearby buildings and vehicles. Emergency services were on the scene within minutes, but the damage was already catastrophic. Firefighters battled the blaze, their efforts hampered by the intense heat and the continuous risk of further explosions from additional gas cylinders and nearby fuel tanks. Paramedics tended to the injured, their hands steady despite the horror around them. Kwame found Amma, her body limp but alive. He carried her away from the flames, his own skin blistering from the heat. He set her down gently and turned back, intent of helping more people, but the firefighters grabbed his arm. "Let us handle it," the firefighters shouted over the din. "Get to safety." Kwame hesitated but then nodded, realizing he would only add to the chaos if he stayed. He retreated to a safe distance, joining the growing crowd of onlookers, their faces masked of shock and fear. News of the explosion spread rapidly. Within hours, the scene was swarming with journalists, police officers, and government officials. The President of Ghana made an emergency statement expressing condolences to the victims and promising a full investigation on the cause of the disaster. In the days that followed, the true scale of the tragedy became clear. The explosion had claimed 15 lives and injured over 100 others. Among the dead were 3 children who had been playing near the gas station. The injured filled the local hospitals, many of them in critical condition. Public outrage grew as details emerged about the gas filling station's safety record. Investigators found that the Evergreen gas station had been cited multiple times for safety violations, faulty equipment, inadequate training for staff, and improper storage of gas cylinders were just a few of the issues highlighted in the report. Yet, despite these warnings, no significant action had been taken to rectify the problems. The explosion at ABEKA LAPAZ became a catalyst for change. Protesters took to the streets, demanding stricter regulations and enforcement in the gas industry. The media ran stories on the negligence and corruption that had allowed such a tragedy to happen. There were calls for the resignation of several high-ranking officials in the Ministry of Energy, accused of turning a blind eye to the dangers posed by poorly regulated gas stations. Amidst the political turmoil and public anger, the community of ABEKA LAPAZ began the slow process of healing and rebuilding. Fundraisers were organized to support the families of the victims and to cover medical expenses for the injured. Local businesses and volunteers worked together to clear the debris and repair the damage. Kwame, racked with guilt and sorrow, became a vocal advocate for safer practices in the gas industry. He shared his story at public meetings and on television. His voice, a sorrowful reminder of the human cost of negligence. He visited Amma in the hospital regularly, her recovery a small beacon of hope in a sea of despair. The government, under immense pressure, implemented new safety regulations for gas stations nationwide. Regular inspections were mandated, and severe penalties were introduced for non-compliance. Training programs were established to ensure that all gas station employees were equipped to handle emergencies. A year later, the scars of the explosion were still visible, but so were the signs of resilience. The site of the Evergreen gas station had been transformed into a memorial park, a place for reflection and remembrance. A plaque listed the names of those who had lost their lives, a solemn reminder of the cost of complacency. Kwame stood at the edge of the park, looking at the newly planted trees and the flowers blooming in the sunlight. It was a peaceful scene, a stark contrast to the horror he had witnessed. He took a deep breath, feeling a sense of closure. The pain of loss remained, but so did the determination to ensure such a tragedy would never happen again. As he walked away, he passed a group of children playing, their laughter a soothing balm to his soul. Life in ABEKA LAPAZ had returned to semblance of normalcy, but it was a new normal, one shaped by the lessons learned from the explosion. The community was stronger, more vigilant, and united by a shared commitment to safety and accountability. The ABEKA LAPAZ gas explosion of 2017 left an indelible mark on Accra and the nation. It was a tragedy born of neglect, but it sparked a movement towards greater responsibility and care in the gas industry. The lives lost were honored not just in memories, but in the concrete changes that followed. Stricter regulations, better training, and a culture of safety became the new standards. For Kwame and many others, the memory of the fateful evening was a driving force. It reminded them daily of the importance of vigilance and the need to speak out against negligence. The explosion was a harsh lesson, but it brought about a future where such a disaster would be far less likely to occur. In the end, the story of ABEKA LAPAZ was one of loss and sorrow, but also of resilience and hope. It was a testimony to the power of community and the enduring human spirit to overcome and rebuild, stronger and more determined than before. Please do well to subscribe for more of these. Thank you.